This war of mine is not the bombastic affair of most war games. You're not a gun-toting superhuman. You're not even in the military. You're a civilian, caught in a war you have no stake in. There's no glory, with survival being the only achievement in the dilapidated world you are trapped in. You start the game in control of three good men, Marco, Pavel and Bruno, who are taking refuge in a bombed out house, which is filled with rubble and has been emptied of all comforts by looters. This is to be your home, your refuge from the war. During the day it provides protection from the conflict raging outside, while at night it serves as an operations base for foraging runs out into the world. As the first day begins, a short description explains that Pavel is injured, Bruno is sick and all three men are tired of the war. You must ignore their exhaustion and set the survivors to work around the house, performing various tasks to make their shelter habitable. It's slow and methodical, emulating how time drags when you have to perform hateful tasks. It gives you the time to think and reflect on the horror of the world around you. The hand-drawn art style adds to this. It looks like the hurried scribblings in a diary, a lost record of war, providing a disconcerting and haunting view of the world. Click around the various task icons in the 2D environment and you can set the trio to work making beds, constructing tools to speed up their work and patching holes in the decimated building, providing you have the required materials. Think of it as The Sims 4 Apocalypse, were such an expansion not so completely tasteless. Nighttime is a wholly different experience. The slow pace remains, but the mundane trudge of the day-to-day is replaced by a thrillingly tense stealth as you scavenge different locations for supplies. I chose to send Marco to scavenge, making the injured Pavel stand guard over the shelter and allowing the sick Bruno to sleep. Before they'd even set out, the stakes were high because, with the supplies already exhausted, it was imperative that food and first aid be found. Each time night arrives, new districts open for you to visit and raid for supplies. Areas contain different rewards and hazards, so you must carefully weigh up the trade-off between what is needed and the danger involved, especially as you can only visit one area a night. Selecting to raid the supermarket, I had high hopes for Marco's chances of finding the vital supplies, but the game had other plans. Arriving in the darkened world, it was instantly clear that Marco was not the only person raiding the complex. An armed gang patrolled the aisles, forcing me to carefully limit Marco's search to the safer areas. Initially I found only scraps around the periphery of the structure. Then, having found my way into the undisturbed basement, Marco stumbled across a small medical room with bandages and medication. Abandoning a few planks of wood to make space in the inventory, I gleefully, or as gleefully as is possible in this war of mine, grabbed the desperately needed supplies. I wanted to dash to the exit, but I noticed the pulsing red dots outside the room, indicating that Marco could hear something. Here the 2D viewpoint came into its own, offering a complete overview of the space, but hiding the unknowns, such as people intent on murdering you. Icons above the door offered me two options, to open it or peer through the lock. Kneeling Marco down, with my breath held, I looked out into the corridor. It was a rat. Exhaling, I sprinted to the exit to carry the much needed supplies home. While day 2 went well, things quickly started going downhill after that. A few poor scavengers didn't help, but it was the killing of Marco that really devastated the group. Caught one night searching a house for food, 2 other raiders found him and mercilessly beat him to the ground. Days passed with Bruno complaining that they'd killed him like a dog. His depression deepened, and even though I sent Pavel out day after day to meet his needs, to the point where Pavel's fatigue was obvious through how slow his stumbling movement was, nothing seemed to help. Indeed, on one occasion, Pavel's return to the house with essential supplies was met by complaints that he'd stolen them from other survivors, proving that there is no pleasing some people. Even the arrival of a new survivor to the group did little to help, especially after he too was gunned down in his sniper alley. In retrospect, it was probably bad to have sent him there. Depression sank through the remaining pair, and their apathy led to their eventual demise. Pavel's lethargy left him exposed to attack while scavenging, while Bruno effectively committed suicide by cop as he mistakenly walked into a military barracks. Again, that may have been my fault. Oppressive, tense and depressing, there is every reason not to enjoy this war of mine, but that doesn't stop it being an engrossing and touching experience. It does exactly what it sets out to achieve, and it's a somber reminder of the truth behind what games so often glamorize. Original, creative, and in its own way beautiful, there is little else like this available. If you want to see the other side of modern warfare, then you should make this war yours.